Alright, to your benefit, there isn't much time left on this camera, so I'll have to keep this short. Brief response to the Anticontavad. So it's back still on this logic thing, and at the end of the video he's expressing the same kind of, how could you possibly, that's my response to him, how can you possibly defend this nonsense, this rubbish you're talking? And he's talking as if these people who think logic is something in the world. It's not a tool. We don't get to manufacture the truth. You don't get to manufacture the truth that, oh, slavery is wrong. We manufactured that truth. We manufactured the idiocy of thinking that, oh yeah, if I'm comfortable, but I'm comfortable by throwing, live babies into a fire to warm me, that there's a inefficiency in this exchange. And somehow I made up the inefficiency. The inefficiency isn't a truth. No, the inefficiency is something I made up with my screwdriver tool, my logic tool. This is where the nonsense comes from, okay? You're saying that logic is something we invent. We just make it up. And we're saying, no, logic is something you see in the world, you discover it. And you can choose to see all of it, or you can choose to see none of it. You can half-truth your way through life, or you can whole truth your way through life. You can turn the rocks over and see, you can look at a desert and say there's no life in the desert. Or you can go into the desert and start turning rocks over and finding the Gila monsters and the scorpions and all the shit that's living there. There's a truth and there's a half-truth. So yes, you can abuse the half-truths if that's all you want to see. If you just want to see the surface and you want to see what's convenient, then you can abuse logic like a tool. You can use it to cheat your way, because logic will provide you half-truths that are on your side that'll defend what you're doing. But the purpose is to find the whole truth, is to turn over the rocks and to be fair to the truth. But it's not a tool, it's a thing we discover. And yes, you can abuse anything. You can rape any pig, you can rape anything. But that's all you're doing. You're raping logic by saying it's a tool, by calling it that. Of course it has utility. Of course it can be a Swiss Army knife or it can be a screwdriver. You can mold it into anything. But the truth is that it does have a reality. The truth is that if you borrow money, you got to pay it back. I mean, these truths are not something we can make up. So it's just so obnoxious of you to sit there and with this blank look of total amazement. How can they not get that, we get to just make up the truth? Well, yeah, I don't get that because it doesn't make any fucking sense. You either care to use the truth as it is, to sit there and be fair, or to be unfair, to use the whole truth or to use half-truths. But, and this whole idea of its utility to you, the logical way to be thinking is, what's my utility to the truth? That should be your perception. Isn't how can I use the world, is how can I make the world function more efficiently? How can I be a productive element in the mechanism? The clock is ticking. Will I be dust in the clock? Will I be cement in the clock? What will I be to the clock? Will I make it tell better time? Or will I be a fucking piece of shit gumming up the gears? And yes, you can use logic to see purpose in being glue, but you're abusing logic. You're not using logic. A half-truth is no truth at all. That could be said. It's more dangerous than a falsehood. A half-truth is more dangerous than a falsehood.
Things, but they're not very good for others. Understanding what my tools are does not abolish them.
So again, he just keeps talking as is understanding what the manipulated truths are, what truth we can manipulate, understanding what truth you can manipulate. You can create like a starry-headed screwdriver of truth, debt is good for the economy. Yeah, but it's a lie. It's been engineered for a purpose that has nothing to do with the truth that you have to pay it back.
Logic won't get me where I want to go, then I reach for it.
So there you go. Logic won't get me where I want to go. this very premise is flawed logically. The very idea that where I want to go has some subjective, personal, and that's it. Subjective, personal. That logic doesn't let you see the whole playing field and have you understand that it's not about you, it's about the team, and it's about the goal you can only see logically.
Tool for a different function. But that's not the same thing as the abolition of my tools.
So it is the same thing. Again, if you're going to rape the pig, it's not love. If you're going to conform, if you're going to scrape off the logic, like say the desert is barren, okay, even though you could turn over rocks and you're going to see that it's not barren. So if you're going to have half-truths, and then they're half-truths that you know, and I think you do know, they're distortions. Okay, the rainbow is a lie. You know, if you're going to sit there and say you're going to allow the cheated, you know, the half-truth is the distortion. If you're going to allow that to remain the truth when you know, you don't have to scrape very hard to know that it's gold-plated. It's not solid gold. You can't call it gold when you know it's gold-plated. You're selling something that you know is plated, and you're calling that a tool. And you're saying that that has some sort of integrity. There's no integrity in selling plated as the real thing.
I don't understand, well, perhaps I do understand, or I'm trying to understand why people can't see it that way.
Again, we couldn't make it any more clear. We totally disagree with your inane premise that you make up the truth. There is a truth to be described. We can understand the truth that slavery is unproductive. We don't need to be morally offended. We don't need to have any kind of emotional reaction. We can just logically recognize that that sweat is like debt. Somebody's paying it. Okay? Because I'm not paying it doesn't mean the debt isn't being paid. Because I'm not suffering doesn't mean suffering isn't happening. We can understand that the bill is still being paid. If I walk out of the restaurant without paying my check, I can logically understand that means everybody else had to pay my check. Okay? That the customers are going to pay the bill eventually. Okay? The owner isn't going to pay the bill. The customers are going to pay the bill. So I just made everybody else pay for my dinner. We can logically understand those implications.
As I say, it may be a fear response, I suppose it could be.
Right, okay, I'll call you a pussy then too. Yeah, you're a pussy. You're just such a fucking goddamn pink tutu wearing pussy.
Arrogance. I'm an extremely arrogant person myself, so it's not as though it's something that I can...
Arrogance, you know, how confident you are in nonsense doesn't really matter, right? It's whether it's nonsense or not. So the argument is it nonsense to think that the truth is something you can make up, or the truth is something we attempt to discover? Is it nonsense to say, even to have the ambition, even if the truth was elusive, to give up on pursuing it and say, I will settle for something made up, is intrinsically and fundamentally inane. And then on top of that to say, I can't know the truth, I will not pursue the truth, but I know the truth is everything's going to be okay, that's even more insane. Can you see why I would say you are fucking insane? You've not only declared the truth unattainable, you've not only given up on looking for it, even turning over a fucking rock that doesn't have your self-interest written on it, and on top of that, you have the arrogance, the impossible, preposterous arrogance to tell me that you know it's going to be all right. You know the truth says that. Well, how do you know when you didn't even look for it?
Fault other people for it. But it is an interesting thing to get into, to see the objections that are raised.
Yeah, I don't know. You had never deal with the objections being raised. The objection being raised is you can't undo revolution. You can't undo the facts of our existence. You can't undo the simple economy that I'm feeling, you're feeling, he's feeling, he's feeling, he's feeling, he's feeling, and the interaction between all of us is going to decide how well we're doing this. Okay, we can't enslave half of us and win. That's logic that explains that to you. Fuck.
when you start questioning people's sacred cows.
So it's a sacred cow to believe the truth exists, that we can discover it through experiment and interaction with reality. We can discover it, like we discovered, oh, women are got brains and have ambitions and can want things. They're not something just to be barefoot and pregnant. And oh, black people are, are human beings, and if you give them a little tiny bit of education, they'll, you know, beat the shit out of you. Yeah, so yeah, that we didn't discover as truth. We didn't go through life banging into the walls to figure out where the walls are. No, we just make it up. We just make artificial walls wherever we want to go. Fuck.
Whether we like it or not, logic can be a matter of faith.
No, logic can be distorted and perverted by people who wish to distort and pervert it for their self-interest. Again, why should I declare you anything but a self-obsessed, sociopathic lunatic? Why should I? You basically are declaring, I don't really care about the truth if it doesn't have, here's your profit written on it. Here's your personal profit. If it doesn't wave dollar bills at you, you don't want it, you will not turn over the rock. You will not look. You will not be fair to the truth. You will not be fair to logic. You will slander logic. You will rape logic by declaring it something you made up. You made up this idea that other people feel. You made up this idea that animals suffer. You made up this idea that we evolved over 4 billion years just to be selfish cunts, and that that's not much of an accomplishment. You know, I didn't make it up. It's the reality, and if you gave a shit about something besides yourself, you'd recognize that understanding the reality, turning over all the rocks, trying to get as much information as possible, is the only honorable way to use the truth. Fuck. So, until next time. And such.